Welcome to today's fantastic RootsMagic webinar. My name is Michael Booth. I am Vice President of RootsMagic and one of its developers. And also with us this afternoon is the Roots Magician himself, Bruce Busby. And Bruce, of course, is the President of RootsMagic and its author. RootsMagic 5 is the latest version of our award-winning software which makes family history easy. And two of our favorite new features are the Research Manager and Research Logs. And today, we'll take a closer look at these new features and learn how they help you avoid reinventing the wheel by keeping track of research goals, sources, and results that you've collected on a person, family, or place. And with that introduction, I'll turn the time over to Bruce.
Research logs are one of the features that we added new in version 5. And one of the first questions we received when this came out was people were wondering whether or not, or what the difference was between the research logs and the to-do list. So let's go ahead and give you a little bit of a difference, what the difference between those two are. One of the things that RootsMagic has always had has been the to-do list. So when you go in and select to-do list, go into the to-do lists, you've always had the to-do list items. And one of the things people wanted to be able to add in addition to that was the ability to track the actual research. So a to-do list is going to be things you need to do. So it can be things like, oh, I need to get a copy of somebody's death certificate, or it could be something general like, oh, I need to clean up my place list. You know, maybe your place list is starting to get kind of, clogged up, and so you want to clean that up. So you might create a to-do list item for just a general to-do list item for cleaning up your place list. Okay. The difference between this and the research log is going to be that the research log is going to show you the research that you have done on a particular objective, so to speak. So, for example, if I go up into my list and then come down here into the Research Manager, I will get a list of all the research logs that I have created. Okay, now I can create a number of different research logs. Let's go ahead and say I want to add a research log. This right here, this is just a little sample database, so I don't have a lot of research logs available right here. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want to add a research log. Now, when I do that, RootsMagic asks me for a number of different things. One, what is the name for this research log? Now, this name is going to be simply what I want to show up here. So the only place that really gets used is to determine how I want my list of research logs that I have to sort. The second item when I'm creating a research log is who or what is this log for? Now, I could just say this is a general research log. If I just want some to keep track of just general research I've done, not necessarily specific to a person or a family or anything like that, I can create a general research log. Most of the time, though, your research log is going to be a bit more specific. It's going to be something like a research log for a person. And if you choose to do a research log for a person, you can come over here and click and select which person that research log was for. So just go ahead and select any person that you want, and you can do that. If you happen to pick a family, when you click on this, then you can select which family. If you do a research log for an event, then you have two items. You need to select the person, and then you need to select which event in that person's life. And finally, if you are doing a research log for a place, you would select which place the research log is for. Okay, now why might you do these general items? Okay, if you have a particular person in your file that you are researching, you might create a research log for any or every person in your file. And there's no limit to the number of research logs. So you can have a research log for every person, and in fact, you could have multiple research logs for each person. Okay? You might be wanting to keep track of the research that you're doing for a particular family. You might have a family that you kind of have a feeling this is how they go together. This is the dad and the mom. These are the kids. I'm not completely sure of this, though. So you might create a research log to keep track of all the research that you're doing towards that family in order to kind of keep that all together. For events, why would you maybe want to have a research log for an event? Well, you might have a person that you have a lot of information on, but his birth, for example, is just driving you up the wall. You just can't seem to find the information you need to prove when or where he was born. Okay, so you might select a person and then select his birth event and create a research log specifically for that one event. So every time you do research, you can keep track of it related to that event. Finally, place. Okay, you might actually have a small town or village that has a lot of your family in it. Okay, the place research log allows you to keep track of all research that you are doing or have done for a specific place. Okay, finally, once you've selected who or what this research log is for, you can put what is the objective of this research log. Now, the objective might be as simple as this is all research related to Gilbert Belknap in this case, or it might be something more specific. This is basically where you're saying, I have a research goal. There's this goal that I need to achieve. I want to be able to prove something, and that's what you're going to put right here in the what is the objective of this research log. Okay, once you've created your research log, you're then free to go start adding research items. Now I'm going to back out of here, and I'm going to go in for just a second to back into the master research log list, and I'm going to show this one right here. This is one, the James Smith marriage. So if I edit this research log, you'll see I just called it James Smith marriage. I could also call it marriage, James Smith, or Smith, James marriage, or whatever I want, however I want it to actually sort. Then I've selected the person and which event, and then I put the objective. I want to prove that James Smith and Deborah Lynn Roberts were married on June 2nd, 1928, and I want to try to determine the location. Okay, once I have set my objective, my research objective, everything that I want to add down here is going to be stuff that I have researched for this particular objective. So let's go ahead and just look at one of these. If I want to add a research item, I would just click on Add a Research Item. Let's go ahead and edit one of these. I'm going to edit one of these research items so you can see what it is that I would add for each piece of research that I have done or want to do. First thing is the date of my search. What day did I actually do this search? And you just enter the date, or you can select it from the little calendar. Okay, if you have a reference number, this would be your own private reference number. So if you've got some filing system where you file research that you've done, you can use that. It's optional. You don't have to use that. Okay, so in this case, what I was trying to do is I was trying to verify James and Deborah's marriage information. Okay, what source did I check? Now, I could leave this simple by just saying it's James Smith's will, or I could get fancier and type in, the full, appropriate citation for that. Where did I check? Okay, let's say I have a copy of his will in my possession, and I can say it's a personally held copy of the will. And finally, what were the results of my search? Okay, I can say in this case, James's will left, quote, all of my worldly possessions to my wife, Deborah Lynn. Okay, so this, looking at this will, is basically giving me information that James was married to somebody named Deborah Lynn, okay, because he left all his worldly possessions to her. Okay, when I close that, Okay, let's look at another option. Okay, now this option right here, you'll notice that this date hasn't even occurred yet, April 2nd, 2012. Okay, if you've been following any of the blogs or anything going on right now, you know what special meaning that particular date has. That's the date that the 1940 census is going to be made available. So I could say I want to search on April 2nd, 2012, and I am going to try to find them as a couple or a family in the 1940 U.S. Census, and this is where I would happen to do that. Now, I don't have any results for this particular research yet because I haven't even done it. Okay, what's great about this research log is that not only can I keep track of the research that I've done, but I can start keeping a list of research that I want to do. So as I think, oh, I really ought to check this particular source, I can come in and I can put a research log entry for that. Now, I don't have to put a specific date. In this case, I did because I know when this particular record will become available. But I could leave the date of the search blank so that when I finally do get around to checking this source at that location, I can come in and I can fill out the rest of it. I can put the date I did that search and the results of the search at that time. Okay, so I have this. Now, there's a third item. Okay, what I've mentioned for research items is research that I've done and found some good results, and secondly, research that I intend to do. Okay, in other words, I intend to look at this source, and these were the results. The third thing that you would want to add as research items would be sources that you looked at but did not find any information. Okay, you're going to want to keep track of your negative results as well. And why would you want to do that? Because that's going to help prevent you from searching that same source again next year and the year after and the year after and the year after. By keeping track of everything you've looked at, whether or not you found something or not, you will be able to keep track so that you can look and say, I already searched that. Now, this is where your results become very important. When you add a research item, okay, when you add this research item, be specific with the results of your search. And the results of your search could be, I was looking for this particular piece of information, and this is what I found or didn't find. Because later on, as you get better at knowing what to look for, as your genealogical skills become better, you will be able to think or look at a source and say, oh, I should have looked for this other information in that source. I should have looked for the neighbors. I should have looked for whatever. Okay, you can, by keeping track of exactly what you were trying to find, exactly what you looked for, and exactly what you found, you can actually look and say, oh, I looked at that source, but I was looking for this, and this is what I found or didn't find. But now I know that if I look at that source, I should have looked at this other or looked for this other piece of information as well. And so you can go and do another research log entry to show that you have now looked for data A and data B in this particular source. Okay, I'm going to come back here to this master research log. Okay, and this, like I say, this one, I got to this research log manager from the main lists menu. On RootsMagic, I went to lists and then to research logs. So this is going to be a list of all the research logs I have. So if I happen to have research logs on everybody in my database, this could be a pretty significantly long list. So RootsMagic will let you filter this list down based on what is in that title of the research log or is in the information over on the right side. So if I come over here and I typed in Howard, I want to find all the research logs that have something to do with a Howard. When I do a search, you'll notice I just have the one research log for Howard Smith Jr., and I can see it as well. On the other hand, if I come over here and type Iowa and do a search, RootsMagic's going to filter it down. It's going to, of course, get Avon, Iowa, because that's pretty obvious. I have Iowa right there in the title of this particular research log. But Howard Smith Jr., it's going to have him over here because I happen to look in the Polk County, Iowa birth certificates. Okay, so this lets me actually filter down this list to make it more manageable. So I'm not having to necessarily search through hundreds of research logs. I can actually just type specifically what I'm looking for and go right on into that. Okay, I'm going to hop back out of here. Now, like I say, that list came from lists and then the research manager. But I can get to specific research logs simply by clicking on a person. So if I were to come up and open up Howard Smith Sr.'s edit screen, you'll notice there's a button up here for the research log. So if I click on research log, that will give me a list of all the research logs I have for this person, whether it's just attached to him, whether it's attached to one of his events or whatever. I can also come up here and add another research log that will default to being attached to him. Okay, so if I want to create, I could then switch that over to an event and pick a specific event. If I'm wanting to create a specific research log for his death, I can do that right from here. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel out of that. But this is going to let me get to the research logs specifically for Howard. Now there's another shortcut. As I'm working from the main screen, when I highlight a person on the main screen, and it doesn't really matter which of these views you're using, up here I will be able to see, along with whether the person has sources or to-do list items or whatever, if the person has any research logs, I'll see the little research log icon up here, and I can just click on that to go straight to the research logs, the list of research logs for that person. If I select a person that doesn't have a research log, you'll notice I don't have that. So when I find a person that has a research log, I can just click, go right to the research log directly from that main screen. Now let's go ahead and look at this research log. I've created a research log here for Howard, and this is just all research related to Howard Smith Jr. I've got a few research items listed here, so let's just kind of go and look at each of those. So I can go and edit a research, and I can say, okay, on this date, I was looking for him in the 1880 census, and that's the source I checked, and I happened to look at it on Ancestry.com. You know, if I want to, I can put the specific URL where I actually found him or didn't find him. And right here you'll see I couldn't find him listed in Avon County. Okay, in other words, I supposedly have him as being born, married, and died in Avon County, but when I look in the 1880 census, I'm not finding him there. Okay, that's going to lead me on to possibly other things. You know, maybe he was in the military, maybe he'd moved away from home, maybe he was going to school someplace else at the time, but for whatever reason, in the 1880 census, I'm not finding him there. Okay, I can look at the next one. Okay, and I could say, okay, I'm trying to determine his birth date and place, and I can say, okay, I checked the Polk County, Iowa birth certificates, and you know, I happen to find the birth certificate, and here's where, and I can say I found a copy of a birth certificate with both the date and place. So this research right here has a positive result, whereas my first entry, I didn't have a good result. I looked, but I didn't find him. But the thing is that keeps me from going back into that 1880 census and trying to find him in Polk County or in Avon County, Polk County again. Okay. Then later on, I may have realized, hey, I should have checked the 1880 census to see if his parents were there. And so I may have gone in and said, I want to find his parents in that census. Again, I've looked in that census, and again, same place. And what were the results? I found his parents living in Avon, Iowa in the 1880 U.S. Census, and he was not living with them according to that census entry. Okay, so I have a couple of options. I could have either, since I was looking in this same census record, I could do like I've got right here. I could have two different research log entries. I could have one that I searched on February 3rd and another I searched on March 3rd, and I could put those as two different entries, or I could have gone back to the entry that showed I looked on the 1880 U.S. Census and found his parents. And if I was going to do that, rather than since it was on a separate date, I would most likely down here in the results of my search, I would say on February 3rd, I couldn't find him. On March 3rd, I found his parents, but he wasn't living with them. It's up to you how you actually want to do that. It's completely up to you how you want to do that. Now, while we're on this screen, I'll show you a couple of other things. One, it's fairly obvious. You can add research items. You can edit them. If you add something and need to delete it for some reason, you can go ahead and delete it. Like I say, though, if you had said, I wanted to search this particular source for something and you didn't find it, I don't recommend deleting that research item. I recommend leaving it in here and showing that I did look in this source, but I didn't find this information. Again, to help keep you from looking at it over and over. Now you'll notice that right here you've got a little kind of a light blue down arrow. That's kind of showing that you're sorting all of your research items right here by date. But you can also sort them by the source, or you can click and sort them by the repository, or you can sort by the results of the goal, or the reference number. Now this is a nice use for the reference number. Let's say you don't necessarily have reference numbers. Let's say you don't specifically assign reference numbers to each one of your research items. That field still allows you to put something in. So if there's a custom order that you would like these research items to sort in, you can use that reference number when you go in. So for example, if I wanted to be able to sort this based on what I was looking for, birth through death, I might go in to say, okay, I wanted to find his birth, so I might enter that as 1, and then looking for him in the 1880 census birthplace, I might, oh, that's one I already clicked on. Finding his parents, so I might set that as 2, and we might set this as 3. Whatever order you want. The thing that's great about this is then you can sort it either ascending or descending order. So it gives you a field where you can use your own custom sort order to get your list in a particular order. Okay, finally, I'm going to hop out of here. I'm going to go ahead and save this. So what we've shown you is how you can create research logs, edit them, add research items. You can also delete a research log. So if you don't need to keep track of it anymore for some reason, you can do that. But the last item I'm going to show you right here is the print. And what the print is going to let you do is select which research log. If I click this button, it's going to show me all the research logs, and I can select one. By default, it's going to be the one that I had highlighted right there. I can also choose what order I want to sort my research log items. So let's go ahead and use date. That's usually the default. I can also choose which columns I want in my research log. So I'm going to go ahead and say generate the printout, and I'll zoom out a little bit. And here is my research log, and it is sorted by date. If instead I went in and said, okay, sort it by the reference number, generate it, okay, now I have the same research log except it's sorted by reference number. I can also sort it by which source it was, what repository it was, and again, I can do the results or the goal. That's another thing that you might want to think about as you're entering goals and results. Normally, sorting by the goal or the result might not make a lot of sense because it's just alphabetically how you entered it. So if you were to enter your goals or your results such that the first part, the first word or the first couple of words of your goal or your result gave you something more specific, like your goal might be birth hyphen determine his birthplace date. You know, if you had a goal to find information about his death, you might start it with the word death. Okay, and by doing that, sorting by the goal or the result will allow you to group those research items in a way that, you know, maybe makes more sense to what you're doing as well. Again, I can leave some of these columns out. So if I don't necessarily care what the specific goal was, I can come over here and I can say, don't print the goal, and I now have that without the goal column. So you can turn these different, if I don't want the reference number, you know, I can do that. It gives you a little bit more room for some of those columns. Now, the other thing is there are some reports in RootsMagic. Reports will almost always default to printing in portrait mode. So in other words, it's going to print, you know, in the normal mode. Now, a lot of these reports, especially if they get tight in the columns, one of the things you can do is in the report settings, go over here to layout. And when you click the layout button, it lets you set things like the paper size and margins and all of that stuff. But this one right here, orientation, you can say I want it to print landscape, which means I want it to print the wide way on the paper instead of the up and down. So I can say print it landscape, generate that report, and now my report is going to give me more room for each column by printing it the wide way on the paper. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this up. That's kind of the Reader's Digest version of the research logs. So because I've been doing this, I haven't had a chance to really look over the questions. So I'm going to look really quickly through these. Is there a way to print all of the research items to do at a particular repository? Okay, like you can do with a to-do list. Currently, no. Currently, you can print the research log. In other words, that it's going to include all of the items in that log. There's not a way to print the research items across a bunch of different things. That's one of the advantages of having both the to-do list and the research log. And let me show you that right here. Okay, one of the things I had is right here. If I go into Howard Smith, you'll notice I have his research log here, you know, that has looking in the 1880 census and birth certificates. But I've also got to-do list items. So if I click on the to-do list, I can see I have a to-do list item, get a copy of his death certificate. Okay, now this is why to-do lists are important. This is why you want to have both to-do lists and research logs. The to-do list gives you that ability to go ahead and say what I need to do and where do I need to do it, so that I can then go in and say, print up a list of all the things I need to do at this particular repository. Show me everything I need to do at the Family History Library. Show me everything I need to do at the National Archives. Show me everything I need to do at the such and such county courthouse. Okay, so in this case, maybe I needed to get a copy of his death certificate, and I know that James Smith has a copy of it, so I need to get it from him. Okay, and so I've selected that. One of the things that we've added in RootsMagic 5, every to-do item, okay, let's say I've completed this, I found what I was looking for. One of the things I can do is I can say transfer this completed to-do item to a research log. So when I click on transfer to a research log, which research log do I want to transfer it to? I want to transfer it to Howard Smith Jr.'s. I want to transfer it to this, and I can see what I want. And I can say select. RootsMagic has put in the date, what I was trying to do. I was trying to get a copy of his death certificate. Where did I check? Or what source did I check? Where did I check? And what were the results? Okay, so I can basically say, I probably want to delete this, and I could say, what source did I check? Death certificate. And what were the results? I got a copy of Howard's death certificate from James Smith. Okay, I put in whatever I need to, click OK, and I can close this up now. And so now when I go into Howard's research log, we'll go ahead and edit that. You'll see I now have this item that originally was a to-do list item, but now when I go in and look at it, it is now a research log entry. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to use that to-do list to keep track of things as you're doing it. As I mentioned, you can keep track of things that you want to do in the research log. That's great if you want to keep all of that information together in your research log. But if you do keep it in your to-do list so that you can do things like print a list of everything you need to do at a particular repository, once you have succeeded in finding that information, or again, maybe you had it as a to-do item and you say, I didn't find anything, you can then move that to-do item over into a person's research log or an event's research log, or whatever like that. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions. Okay, this is a common question. There's no way right now to link to a source or repository item. Okay, and what this basically means is that when you are entering a research log entry, currently you enter your source and your repository as free form. Okay, we intentionally did that so that you would be able to keep track of your negative research, in other words, sources that you looked in and didn't find anything, without having to fill up your master source list with sources that you never found anything in. That being said, we are working on ways to allow you to do linking. We will continue to leave these as freeform, but we will add the ability to let you go ahead and tie to existing sources, so that if you do have a source that's in your master source list, you will be able to use that. On the other hand, if you have a source that you've checked that you didn't find anything, you can continue to leave it freeform. So you will have the option in the future to handle both of those. Okay, is it better to have multiple research logs per individual or a single log with multiple separate goals? The answer to that is basically up to you. It's kind of however you want to do it. If the person you're working on, there's not necessarily a lot of big questions about that person. In other words, let's say there's a lot of information about that person, or the information about that person is quite easy to find. You might only have one research log for that person. On the other hand, if there are specific questions that are like brick wall or just really tough nuts to crack, then you might want a separate research log for specific research questions that you have about a specific person. Okay, next question. If there's multiple research logs for an individual, is there a way to merge them into one? The answer is no, but that's actually not a bad idea. We will add that to our list of things to look into to see how involved that would be. But that is a good, could be a good solution, letting you combine multiple research logs into a single research log for a person. Okay. Will there ultimately be the ability to tag research logs for other people, places? That's something we're not actually really sure about. That would actually require some changes to our actual database format. That question is basically, if I have a research log, would I be able to actually tag more than one person, or tag a person and a place and that type of thing in a single research log? Okay. Basically, how do you paste information into a person's record, and could you move this into your research log? Yeah, you can do cut and paste when I edit a research log. When I'm working on a particular field, any of these fields, if I right-click, I will have copy, paste, all of that kind of information. So I can copy, paste from one field to another. I could copy I could select something and copy it to the clipboard and go over someplace else and paste it in, or I could use the little hotkeys to do that. I could also take information from a person's edit screen. So if I happen to be in an edit screen and I have the birthplace, I can do the same thing. So I can select it and then right-click and say copy, and that copies that place or that note. I can go into the notes, I can copy. So I can copy and paste from pretty much anything to anything else. So anyways, it looks like that's kind of an overview of the questions. I hope you enjoyed this mini webinar on the research logs. Next week we'll have another webinar. In fact, actually next week we are loaded with webinars. So if you go to rootsmagic.com/webinars, you will see all the webinars that are still coming up. You'll see any webinars that we've already done. You can watch those, the recordings of those, and within a couple of days you'll be able to go and actually download or watch a recording of this webinar. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.